Good afternoon, everyone. Adcraft. Hope everyone's doing well. Andrew Robinson here, president of Adcraft. I think we're just waiting another minute or so for everyone to file in, and then we will start our first Tuesday of our 2020 day show. So I think we'll give it another minute, and then we'll get rolling. Sound good? All right, I think we'll get going here because I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Again, my name is Andrew Robinson, president of Adcraft. Want to thank everyone for taking the time out of their day. I know Zoom fatigue is real, but I also know, like everyone else, I'm dying to get back to some sense of normalcy and hear from the leaders in our advertising community. And we've got quite the leader to speak to us today. But before we jump into it, would like to address some of the things that everyone's probably dealing with today and in these times, and want everyone to know that having conducted business in the city of Detroit for nearly 115 years, Adcraft stands in solidarity with our Black colleagues. And we know that racism has zero place in our community and in our industry. We strive every day to have an inclusive club, and Adcraft remains the inclusive club for all Adcrafters, all races, and we will continue to be that voice in the Detroit ad community. So thank you for that. Now I want to get on to the event today. This is the second annual Adcraft Day Show. It's a little different than our event last year. If you remember, down at the Gem Theater on a beautiful sunny day last year in June. This year, a little different. I'm from my den here, and our speaker here will be from his home office. A little different than we had planned this year, but we are definitely making the best of it, and want to continue to bring innovation, bring opportunities, and bring the ad community together. So for the next 6 Tuesdays, we are sponsoring and presenting the 2020 Day Show, Connected by Craft. So every Tuesday for the next 5 weeks, I think I said 6, but I believe it's 5 weeks. Please make sure to tune in, as we're going to bring voices from the Detroit community to the table here and talk about what connects us in this crazy world of advertising and marketing. So without further ado, I should say we have a lot of planning going on, because obviously this summer and the next couple quarters look a little bit different to Adcraft and to everyone else. But fear not, we are planning a lot of really fun, informational, educational events from Adcraft to our members. And please follow us on social media so you can be aware of these upcoming events. We're coming with some new fun, creative ways to stay in touch while we're all working from home. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce a great friend of mine, an amazing person, musician, marketer, and all around just a good guy to be around. Lou Eklund, who is a senior partner of Motor Minds, and one of my favorite guys in the industry, and definitely an active Adcraft board member. Lou, I'm going to hand this over to you. Take the wheel, my friend.
I'm happy to. Andrew, thanks for the overwhelmingly positive introduction. I'm starting my video right now. First and foremost, I'm really excited that the Day Show continues, and I'm happy that together with all of you, the viewers, we've been able to do it by any means possible. And you know, it's going to be a great 5-speaker series today, obviously no exception. I wanted to give a brief introduction of today's speaker, Brett Wheatley. Brett Wheatley is a foremost leader of change at Ford. He's been involved in 3 pretty major change initiatives with Ford. In his previous position, he restructured marketing, sales, and service globally, establishing fitness at Ford, both organizational fitness as well as real productive change and marketing, sales, and service with Ford. Once upon a time, when the last time I worked with Brett, he also was the vice president of marketing, sales, and service for China and Asia Pacific, which at the time was a super young organization, and he connected with them. As a matter of fact, for whatever reason, most of the local nationals in Shanghai thought he looked a heck of a lot like Bill Clinton. And then last but not least, most recently, he's really been Hackett's guy for change. As the director of mobility businesses, autonomous vehicles, and mobility partnerships for Ford Motor Company, it is my pleasure to welcome, at 6'4", 6'6" with the executive hair, Mr. Brett Wheatley. Brett, go ahead and unmute yourself. There you are.
Yep. All right. Fantastic. Everybody hear me all right? Thank you very much, Lou. It's great to be with the team. It's going to be a fun session, and look forward to getting everybody's thoughts and questions.
Yes. So as I'll mention again, because it is an absolute mouthful in a good way, the director of mobility businesses, autonomous vehicles LLC, and mobility partnerships. Long title. Brett, what the hell do you do?
That's a good question, Lou. So after spending most of my career on the auto side, I had the opportunity to join the mobility business in the beginning of 2018. And so I run the businesses that are up and going. We do an incubation period with a group we call Ford X. And then after we establish a business, I help run them. So the businesses that I oversee right now are Spin, which is our scooter business. We're in about 24 markets right now. We finished last year at about 60 markets. So we have big aspirations to get back to those levels once we get through this COVID crisis. Also oversee a business called Atlas, which Atlas, if any of you have been to the airport the last year and you're taking a bus from the terminal to one of the parking lots, they're the ones who track those buses and tell you when they're going to be there. I also have about 70% of all the university campuses and all the shuttles that move the students. We track those. And then we've got about 1,500 customers in general. So everything from the Apple campus, the Facebook campus, to airports, Marriott hotels, anything that's moving in a bus, we work with Atlas to track that. And then there's a neat little business we've got in India called Office Ride. And believe it or not, we've got a shuttle service there that moves 33,000 people per day throughout India. So those are the 3 main businesses that I oversee. And we also have a group called City Solutions, which is basically our group that partners with community leaders and officials in the city to help them solve their mobility problems and make sure that we've got a community-focused solution to solve those problems. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second.
Oh, that's great, Brett. That's great. So certainly a mouthful and a mouthful of businesses. All in all, how many businesses does Ford either own or have a share in that you oversee?
So there's really 3, the 3 main ones that I mentioned there. Then we also have an AV group, so our autonomous vehicle group, which is based downtown in Corktown. That's going to be the service that's going to set up something similar to Waymo. So autonomous vehicles, Ford vehicles that'll work on moving goods and moving people. And so that's a team, about 500 people that we have down in Corktown, and really excited about that business. So we've got mobility business, we've got autonomous vehicle businesses, all moving people in all new ways.
So I was reading recently in the automotive news that, you know, mobility not only is a thing, but it's been a thing for a while. Just a quick question. I mean, you've been living in the future with mobility longer than most of us. What can we expect? What kind of developments do you see in terms of mobility and kind of helping our world out?
You know, it's fascinating how quickly this business moves. Changes by the day. So COVID threw us a real curveball in a lot of the different businesses because we moved people and people stopped moving. Everybody who wasn't working in their offices, so we didn't need those shuttle services called Office Ride in India to take people to their offices. Everyone was at home. Airports were shut down. Hotels were shut down. So all new challenges, and it just shows how we have to pivot within our businesses. But then we had opportunities like spin. So one of the challenges that we had in Detroit when COVID first started, all the drivers for the buses didn't feel safe being in buses that hold 50 people and transporting people who may have the illness. And so we had to really help the city on finding some different solutions. So we came up with an innovative program called Everyday Heroes. What we basically did is gave free scooter rides to anybody who's on the front lines, whether you were working in a grocery store, whether you're working in a hospital. You weren't going to be comfortable going on a bus, and the buses weren't running because the drivers weren't providing that service. So we gave out free rides to those frontline workers. We had 3,000 people who signed up for the service within about the first 2 days. And up to this point, we've had somewhere between 7,500 and 10,000 people who have taken advantage of those free scooter rides to get to the front lines and do whatever work they need to do to keep all of us safe. So just a constantly evolving space, and we learn stuff every day and how we need to serve the community.
That is really, really cool. So how big do the organizations that you run stay relatively lean, where you know you're making P&L decisions on a daily basis kind of thing?
Yeah, so our spin, the headquarters group there that's based out of San Francisco, anywhere from 150 to 200 people at the headquarters. But then a lot of our force there is actually out in the community. So in every one of the 60 communities that we were in last year, you've got a whole staff that basically picks up the scooters at night, puts them out in the morning where they need to be. Right now, sanitizing them very, very regularly, making sure everybody's staying safe or using those scooters. So that's a big piece of the force that's out there. Atlas is a company also of about 200 people. Office Ride, we're about 150 people who are out there right now, and thousands of buses that are running in that service right now. So we contract with a lot of third-party providers. And then the City Solutions team, we've got a team right now that's about 30 people who are working with the community and each of the individual municipalities to help them solve their mobility problems.
Well, kind of going off script for a second, because I think it's super interesting that basically here we are with a large corporation, a large successful corporation with a great heart with Ford Motor Company, but you're in essence in entrepreneurial mode, complete entrepreneurial mode. And I guess the question that I wanted to ask was, are you seeing, is it night and day to the rest of the culture at Ford, or are you actually seeing some of the cultural change that you've been doing, some of the entrepreneurialism actually seep its way back into Ford and inspire other leaders?
Yeah, that's been one of the real benefits and what makes it really, really exciting for me on a daily basis. Big corporation like Ford, we can help these teams on different things like purchasing, some of the governance and some different things that Ford has established over the years and gotten pretty good. Some would say governance, some would say bureaucracy, but I like to think it's more governance than bureaucracy. But there's a lot of things that we learn from this entrepreneurial spirit for each of these startups, and that is making its way back to Ford. One of the things is just basically that you've got to be more nimble. You've got to have quick decision making. We've got to be looking at what's really happening almost on an hour-by-hour basis in these businesses and making quick adjustments. In the auto side, you basically are placing bets on a product that you hope is going to be successful for 10 or more years because of the size of the investment. In mobility, the whole micro-mobility space, the scooter space, wasn't even there 2 years ago. And now you've got three companies between Spin, Bird, and Lime that are major players in this space, delivering millions of rides per year. So again, it went from nowhere to something like that, scaled very, very quickly. a year from now, it'll be interesting to see what's new out there. It could be drones. It could be, again, autonomous vehicles aren't that far down the road. So the speed, the market, nimble decision-making, and making sure you're getting really, really close to the voice of the customer on a daily basis is so key, and that is making its way back and forth.
So the theme of our series is connected by craft, right? And it's the whole idea of that being together helps speed up ingenuity. And I've been reading a lot about the City One initiative that you've championed in your position. Can you talk a little bit for our viewers what City One's all about, and maybe some examples of what it's resulted in?
Sure. So the City One group is a really interesting group of employees that we recruited from the outside, and a lot of them have urban planning experience, or they have experience working on the municipal side when you're on that side and you need to decide what is a bike program that you're going to have for your city, or the scooter program, or how you're thinking about how the curb space is used for pickup and delivery of goods and picking up people for something like an Uber and Lyft. So we've got a lot of people who are outside the traditional auto business that we recruited to this team. And then you've also got a lot of designers, so people who actually work on community design and really getting behind design thinking, which Jim Hackett's been a big champion of. And so what this group does is they go into each of the communities and figure out what are their mobility problems and how can we help solve them. And the one example I'll give is what they've done in Michigan Central, the station that we've got. Ford bought the Michigan Central train station, and that's going to be the new hub of mobility and autonomous vehicle for Ford, as well as a lot of other startup community employers are going to be joining us in that facility. So it'll be a real hub of innovation. So it's going to be taking the Motor City to a whole new level. It's going to be kind of the mobility city right there in the train station. And so one of the things that was really important is that we got the voice of the community, because we're going to be putting a lot of people into Corktown, which hasn't had a lot of activity in several different years. So we want to make sure that we really understood what are the challenges that they have in that community, how can we help solve them, and how can we really keep that community top of mind. So again, it's not a big corporation that's coming in and disrupting everything, but really working closely with the community. So what this whole City Solutions team does is it's basically crowdsources ideas. So they've worked with about 150 different residents in the community. We work with different startups, and we basically say, what are the problems that we have right here? How can we solve them? And how can we basically fund ideas and bring them to implementation? So through this crowdsourcing project, we had about 165 different people who submitted ideas of what they think we should do in the city and how we could help mobility in that Corktown, Detroit area. And we whittle it down to about 12 finalists. We give them about $6,500 each to help refine their proposals, do some mentoring on their ideas. And then we go to the city and we propose the different ideas hand in hand with those finalists. And what was really exciting is that we awarded $250,000 between 3 different startups who had ideas of different ideas that would really help the city move. One of those ideas was something that sounds very simple, but it's really a big opportunity for the community. And that's the bridge that goes from Corktown to the heart of Detroit on Michigan Avenue. It's a bridge that a lot of people avoid. They don't think it's real safe. They're not real clear how you use it. They're not clear how you take a scooter or a bike across that. So they had a really interesting idea to get some local artists to help design that, brighten up that bridge, put some artwork on it, make some visible lanes for scooters and bikes, and then just do a lot of education of what's on both sides of the bridge, downtown and in Corktown, really bring the two communities together. So that was a really exciting initiative we had. And another one we did with Mercy. And Mercy had an idea that we have a beginning of a transportation system in Detroit. It's got a bus system, but it's not being used as often as it could be. And a lot of people don't know where you pick up scooters, how that whole thing works. And so they came up with an idea to really educate people where all the stops are, where you pick up scooters. If you want to hail an Uber or Lyft, where's the best place to do that? So it's basically an education effort to increase visibility of the transportation options that people have in Detroit. And again, it came out of the community, and it's something that we could basically give these groups funds that they wouldn't have otherwise to really bring their idea to life and make it a real part of the community. So really excited to be a part of that and help move solutions.
Really cool. So a seed capitalist is added to your repertoire as well, which is going to be extremely exciting. And I just wanted to make sure I heard you right too. There could be multiple entities in Michigan Central all working together on solutions, right? It's not just, is it just going to be Ford Motor Company, or is there several kind of different denizens of the building, based on what they add to the overall big picture?
Yeah, the building itself, we'd like to make sure that we've got a lot of outside Ford entities in there. So it could be anywhere from a 2-person startup to something much, much larger. Again, as they're focused on mobility solutions and autonomous vehicles and focus on the community and what we can do, we want them there working with us, rolling up our sleeves together to solve these problems. So it's going to be a really, really energetic space. It's going to be something that I think we'll all be very, very proud of to have in Detroit, and hopefully many of you can join us there. It'll also be a big place. The main floor is actually going to be dedicated to the community. So it'll be open to the community. A lot of different designs on going on, exactly what that would look like now. But it could be everything from an indoor farmer's market to local businesses that are really just going to rotate in and out of there, exposing themselves to the community. So very exciting time.
Well, I would agree. That's really exciting. And I mean, just the idea, it's amazing the amount of change just in the way of doing business that is, right? And actually relying on the outside world, the outside help in collaboration. Just unbelievable. Hey, Ann Arbor, just a quick one. What did you do in Ann Arbor? It sounds like there was several kind of well-meaning public works or initiatives underway. In Ann Arbor, kind of a lot of these private efforts were merged together. Am I reading that right, or was something else happening in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, 2 big things that happened in Ann Arbor. First of all, is with our spin scooter business. We are the only group that's allowed to operate scooters in the city of Ann Arbor and also at U of M. And that really took a lot of work, working with the community, working with the university to decide, what do they want to do with scooters? Scooters kind of got a bad rap right out of the gate because it's adding a lot of clutter to the city. One of the things they asked us to do is, could we bring some order to the scooter business? So we developed a charging and a parking station for scooters. The very first charging station for any scooter company in the world really started off in Ann Arbor. So it just shows the power of working in a partnership approach and what you can do. And scooters right now, believe it or not, you would think that everyone who's riding the scooters are just college students. 60% of all the rides there are non-students. So really has been accepted in a big way. So that's been one of our real bright spots for spin is Ann Arbor. Something else that we're working on that will be announced shortly is what we're calling a autonomous vehicle corridor. So think about dedicated lanes that run all the way from Ann Arbor to downtown Detroit for autonomous vehicles. So it's really in its early days right now, but with all the innovation that happens between Ann Arbor and the city of Detroit, with all 3 of the companies, as well as a lot of the autonomous vehicle companies like Waymo, it's a really, really exciting opportunity. And it'll be an opportunity for us to test a lot of new solutions, first of anywhere in the world in a community, again, that stretches many, many miles and touches many different cities along the way. And, you'll see scooter lanes, bike lanes, autonomous vehicles. Hopefully you'll see a lot of different ways on how we'd actually deliver packages now. E-commerce is obviously exploding, and COVID has just accelerated that whole thing now. But cities are having a real challenge in how you actually keep up with all of the trucks that are dropping off parcels, 3 or 4 times a day to the same locations, and that's just not sustainable. So we want to do a lot of things along this corridor as to how do you solve that problem too, to make sure that that is something that's giving the people what they need, but also not adding to a lot of the congestion problems in the city.
Well, a couple observations on that, which is, I think, obviously the corridor between Ann Arbor and Detroit is really exciting, very, very exciting. And the idea of kind of using that real estate, if you will, to experiment in new things. I'm also, obviously spin has saved my bacon a couple of times. I remember back when we used to go to sports events, you could either take a spin there and look cool, or you could take a Carriage ride and look like a complete fool. So, I really appreciative of it. Quick one. You were the leader, going back to the China days, right? You were a leader of a fairly young organization. I remember the average age was around, 26, 27 or what have you, and even though everybody spoke English and that sort of thing, obviously there was a lot of leadership recommended there, or required there. And I guess quick question that I had was, what did you do, or what part of your own kind of personal leadership style did you bring to it? And what did it demand of you in terms of your leadership style?
Yeah, it's a great question, Lou. And of all the jobs I've had in Ford, it's been my most rewarding job, the 3 years that I spent in Shanghai with you and the team there. And like you said, it was a very young team, and it was also a team that was brand new to the industry. And for me, it was an all-new culture that I got to experience firsthand. So a lot of times when people move to Shanghai, they go off to the equivalent of living in a Canton or living in a Plymouth over there in a nice suburban area. And it feels, again, like you're kind of in the U.S. One of the things that I wanted to do when I went over there is to really get in the heart of the city. So I found a place that was right downtown, and that kind of forced me to get immersed into the culture. And that was a first step. And then the second step was just to make sure that we had a very, very flat organization. And we had the ability to do that, as you know, in Shanghai. And if you were to walk into my office or Lou's office, or somebody had been with a job, for 2 weeks, you probably wouldn't know whose office you were really in at that point. I think we all took a lot of pride in that we were all one team. We had more work than we could possibly get done in the day there, and we all worked together. We all rolled up our sleeves, and we just got it done. And it was just a fantastic environment. And I did more listening in Shanghai than I think I was able to do in the rest of my career, because I didn't know anything. I didn't know what the market was like. I didn't know the new challenges for the industry in China. And so when you actually can sit down with people and spend a day with brand new employees and just tell me about your business, tell me about how things work in China, tell me about just everything. You form a really, really close connection, not only with the team, but just a much greater appreciation for the market. And so wish I could have spent even more years in 3, because it just went by so quickly. But I think that was really the key, is a flat organization, no stripes, get immersed in the community, and really get to know the people. It was a very rewarding time.
So let's talk a little bit about, and I don't want to get into anything strategically sensitive, but you were part of, in essence, reorganizing marketing, sales, and service globally, or at least getting the processes and the behaviors down packed. And what I wanted to understand from that is, what kind of behaviors did that take to do that? Did you have to be an ass kicker? Did you have to be more consultative and that sort of thing? And how do you think that prepared you for your current position in a leader of change and growth and mobility?
Well, one of the things that we were asked to do is to take it down to the studs. So forget about what's been done in the past in marketing, sales, and service. But if you had a clean sheet of paper, which we never technically have a clean sheet of paper, but this is as close as we had, take it down to the studs and figure out what would it take to be world-class, or at least a path to being a world-class marketing and sales organization. And so we looked at every facet of it. And one of the things that we found is that we were blessed to have incredible partners on the agency side. Many of them were with us on the call today. And the talent was so strong in each of our groups that there were parts of the group at Ford that relied almost too heavily on the agencies, and we weren't developing the skill set that we needed internally. And so that's one of the things that we really wanted to tackle. How do we take out the best of all the agency has brought to us, but how do we upskill our own team at the same time? And our agency partners between GTB, WPP, BBDO has been working with us, Wheatley, Kennedy, all of them really helped us on this overall process to figure out what does world-class look like? What's happening outside of the industry? We took a lot of pride on that Ford was doing a pretty nice job, we thought, within the auto industry. But when you compare it to other different companies, Netflix and what they're doing and how they're using the power of data, a lot of different examples that you guys are going to be very, very familiar with. We weren't where we needed to be, and a lot of it started internally, that we needed to upskill. And so I just can't thank our agency partners enough to help us with this process to making sure that we got the talent that we needed internally, and then for them to really help us on some of the processes that we need to figure out how we can make them much more robust. So the journey is really just starting, but I think we're a much stronger organization with the help of our partners than we were just a few years ago.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I, being part of the organization that was around, obviously it inspired a lot of amazing change right here in the States as well. So really excited and grateful for that. Quick one, and then we'll open it up very shortly to Q&A. I'm pleased to say we are well into the triple digits in terms of participation, and would appreciate, we've already got a couple of Q&As in the Q&A queue, but feel free to ask your questions. I believe you should have a Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen. And you can feel free to ask those. We'll be opening it up to Q&A in about the next 5-10 minutes. So everybody, we'd appreciate your active Q&A because Brett's really good at that. Brett, quick one for you. I can remember one of the most impactful leadership demonstrations I've ever seen was in China. When we were there and there was kind of a getting to know you session with the local nationals and you. And you showed, I think, an incredible amount of emotion and even some vulnerability to them. And talking about, how kids grow up so fast and that sort of thing. And I know there was a lot going on. What inspired you to do that? Because that's a pretty huge step as a leader.
Yeah, to me, one of the keys of being a leader is being authentic. And to really be authentic, you've got to be vulnerable. And it was a time of reflection for me. And again, been with Ford a long time and made a lot of sacrifices over my career, including moving to China. At one point without my family there, as my son was in high school, and he was a big baseball player, and I didn't want to pull him out of something that was his most formative years. So my wife and I and our family made the decision I'd go over to China by myself. And it was only a 14-hour commute, so it seemed manageable at the time. But it was something that, again, there's a lot of reflection on what's really important. And I think we're probably all seeing that right now. I think with the time that we're all spending at home, I know my son's out in the workforce right now. He's been out of school for a couple of years, and my daughter's been out of school even longer. We had the opportunity for both of them to be with us here. And the time that I was able to spend with them over these last few months really just shows you what's important in life. And that was the message that I wanted to have with the China team, that with all the challenges and all the ups and downs, you've got to put that front and center. And did show some vulnerability and just ask the team there to really make sure that the family and our personal relationships were front and center. Business is important, but it's not the most important thing. If you don't have family, you don't have friends, the rest of it doesn't really add up. So that was my main message. And some of the leaders that I've had the privilege of working with at Ford over the years, the ones that I've admired the most are the ones who are truly authentic and wear their hearts on their sleeve. I just think that's a key.
Well, you were way ahead of your time, And I think everybody at the time, we probably had, maybe a quarter of the people there were from other countries besides China, expats, if you will. And they appreciated it as well. So it really transcended a lot of different cultural differences. Hey, last question before we get into Q&A, and there is a bunch of Q&A coming in. So, it's funny, for the rest of the series, almost everybody has at least some tangential relationship to sports. And I know you're a huge sports fan out of Cleveland, Ohio. I just wanted to see if there was any kind of sports analogies that you apply to your overall, either your job now or overall what you apply to your career and your leadership style.
Yeah, I'm a huge sports fan, and a huge sports fan from Cleveland, Ohio, which is I can't begin to tell you how difficult that is, and the the loss record that we've had in Cleveland. But true to my Browns, Cleveland Indians, and Cavaliers. You know, one of the quotes I really like is Wayne Gretzky, where he said he's missed 100% of the shots that he didn't take. And those of you who watched The Last Dance, it's been on ESPN this last month with Michael Jordan. It's amazing. As successful as Michael Jordan was, I think the stat is that he missed 9,000 shots over his career. And he had the opportunity, the ball in his hands, to win 200 games, and he missed a shot and lost the game. He said, those are the things that made me successful. And that's really a message that we try to bring up within mobility, too, is that we're going to miss. You have to miss shots. You've got to take chances. Again, we don't know where this business is going to go. But if you don't take the chances, you don't experiment, you don't go out on a limb, we're going to be a safe bet and we're not going to be successful in this space. So to me, you got to take the shots knowing that we're going to miss them. And luckily, we've got a leadership team who understands that there'll be some wins and there's going to be some misses and there's going to be some losses too. We'll learn from those losses, dust ourselves off, and get back in the game. So to me, those are two things that are very inspiring and something that we try and really bring home in our team. Take the shot.
Great. I love it. Love it. Words to live by. So we're going to open up to Q&A right now, but a couple things. You know, Brett, I think, has given us our money's worth here in talking about not only the future and what he's working on, but also a lot of points on leadership as well, where he is heralded. I mean, he mentors literally dozens of people at Ford and elsewhere. I did want to say, if you appreciated the chemistry between Brett and I, it's because this isn't the first time that we have performed in front of an audience. So I'm going to ask for a picture just for reference. So imagine Shanghai, China, 2014, in front of about, let's see, in front of about 1,200 local nationals. And let's just see what that looks like. I think it'll be coming up any second, but let's just put it this way. Brett had this amazing idea to, he's always been a big Detroit Rock City fan. So we thought, why not actually perform it in China at our Chinese New Year celebration in front of 1,200 people. And I'm pleased to say that on the bass, as Gene Simmons, is Brett Wheatley. And on the lead guitar, as Paul Stanley, is me. And then for good measure, we've got the CEO of Ford of Canada as Ace Frehley walking away right there. And we also have the Chief Product Officer at Ford on the drums to round it out. So if you're wondering where the chemistry comes from, it's because once you've dressed up in KISS gear and performed Detroit Rock City in another country, you're bonded for life. So, Brett, thank you very much.
Very memorable. I'm a tall guy, as Lou said. I'm 6'4", maybe approaching 6'5" from time to time. And you strap 7-inch heels on. It was quite a sight. Quite a sight, but we had a lot of fun that night.
As a matter of fact, we purposely didn't show the video because I think one member of the team, the heels got the better of him, and he fell on his butt. But thank God we had 50 people in the background to help him back up. It was kind of like that scene out of Spinal Tap. Hello, Cleveland, there. So now we'll open it up to Q&A. You know, quick one, Brett. First question out the door. You got to remember, we're talking to triple digits of people that are in and around advertising. And one of the biggest questions that's come up is, how do you advertise mobility, or how do you promote mobility, or is it best kept as a light under the bushel?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and something we're really thinking through right now, because these businesses are just starting to scale. And so how do we get the word out there on the solutions? Something else that we're debating is, what's the connection that you make with Ford? So Ford, obviously known for cars and trucks and moving people. A lot of the people interested in mobility solutions won't own a car. So in San Francisco, a lot of the people who are riding our scooters really don't have aspirations to own a car. They want to rely on mass transit, and they want to rely on scooters or walking or whatever it might be. So we're trying to find that right balance. One of the things that we found have been very, very successful is just community engagement and really getting in at the grass levels and almost doing more on the earned media side out of the gate. That's kind of helped us get some scale initially, get some ridership going, get some awareness going. But now these businesses are becoming so significant, it's really a matter of how do you make your product more sticky than the others. So if you ride scooters, you've got a choice between a bird or a lime or a spin. Why are you going to pick spin? And it's interesting. I talked about that everyday heroes approach that we have. Something else that's really important with spin that we've tried to amplify in a big way is just the whole partnership approach. Scooters got a bad rap when they first came out of the gate because they just showed up on the sidewalks. The cities didn't know they were going to be there tomorrow, and all of a sudden they're there. So we kind of had to reset. And with spin, the whole thing is that we don't ask for forgiveness. We partner right from the beginning. We never go into a city unless we have permission. So we're starting to dial up that messaging. And now I think we're going to start laying into Ford a little bit more, that this is a fantastic asset that we have with Ford. Make a connection there, build out all the positives of Ford has these different mobility solutions, but still give these groups the independence and the entrepreneurial spirit. So a lot to work through right now, but again, most of it's been under the radar on the marketing side. Now you'll start to see that being dialed up. And I think autonomous vehicle is going to be another huge, huge opportunity for us when we bring that to market. And autonomous vehicles are interesting because a lot of people still have concerns about getting in the back seat of a vehicle without a driver in it. It's a big unknown. What we really want to leverage with Ford is the trust that we've established and the fact that we kind of know this space well on the automotive side, and it's a brand from a safety standpoint that you can trust. So if you're going to get in the back seat of any autonomous vehicle, it would make sense to get into one provided by Ford. So you'll see a lot more about that in days ahead.
That's fantastic. And I'll tell you, you know, I sat through a lot of focus groups and that sort of thing at my time at Ford. And people always said, wouldn't it be great if the leadership of Ford were in focus groups with people at the grassroots? And, you know, that was from a vehicle making and that sort of thing perspective. But I really love how your organization is putting it into absolute practice, where the answer is in the grassroots portion of it. And I could see how it kind of markets itself. I have a quick question from Cameron Dutton. He's a senior marketing student at the Eli Broad College of Business at Michigan State University. Go Spartans, go green, go white. You mentioned that understanding the power of data can be a catalyst for being world-class. What data analytics software do you use most frequently or recommend that he studies?
Wow, Cameron, you're getting me into the 400 level class on data. I'm almost at the 100 level, so I can't give you the specifics of what we use. But one of the things that's really important to Ford is just finding that balance between what is the data that we can use to everybody's advantage, and then what has to be really kept very, very private, because you don't want people to be able to figure out the algorithms and whether people move from the scooter from point A to point B. But we do want to see in an aggregate level how people are moving, so we know where to put those scooters. Maybe we need to put more scooters at those bus stops. When people get off the buses, how do they have a scooter to go that last mile? So we've got a really sophisticated data and analytics team at Ford, and so it's really pulling all this different data together and how people are moving on an aggregate level, but keeping the personal data very, very private. And so trying to find that right balance is really key to us. But I can follow up with you, Cameron, and figure out specifically how I can connect you with the right people on the data side and answer any questions you have. But again, out of my area of expertise on the details on that one. But I appreciate the question.
All right, we've got Michael Slimgen is asking, Ford's historically been perceived as being not an environment necessarily for change agents, something which I think you would rebuke. But how were you able to successfully navigate the internal roadblocks in politics to propagate change within the organization?
Yeah, another great question. You know, one of the real positives that we have is we have a visionary leader in Bill Ford, Jim Hackett, and then Jim Farley. So Jim Farley, like Lou and myself, had spent his whole career on the automotive side. But about a year ago, he moved over to our mobility group, and he really got immersed in the spin business, the Atlas business, everything that we're doing on autonomous vehicles. So you take somebody who's got 25 plus years on auto, drop him in for a year in mobility business. And now he's back, as you know, as the COO for the company. So between Jim Hackett, Jim Farley, and Bill Ford, you have three people who are very, very vested in the FAR and in mobility solutions outside of the automotive space. So we have regular meetings with them, and we make sure on a quarterly basis we're sharing everything that we're doing. And it just helps tremendously to have bottom-up feedback from the communities on what's important, and then the support from the top. And if we didn't have that support from the top, we wouldn't be able to go as far as we're going. But one of the challenges that's also a big responsibility for us is it has to be a viable business. So as constrained as capital is for all of our different businesses right now, there has to be a return on this thing. So we do have to make sure that, again, we're working on the FAR solutions, but we're also making sure that we are going to be delivering a good return for this business so we can keep building the auto that we all want, whether it's the next Bronco, new F-Series, Mach-E, Mustang. So we do have a lot of responsibility on that too. So.
Phenomenal, phenomenal. Interesting one. Ron Frederick, our esteemed councilman and board member from St. Clair Shores, asked, what songs did we perform? Obviously, it was just one song. That's all it took. Brett, what song did we sing?
Yeah, Detroit Rock City.
Detroit Rock City. It was great too. I'm sure the guys in KISS would be very proud in the fact that we not only had that, but what do we have, like 50 or so backup dancers. So it was pretty big spectacle.
Or train wreck, either way. One of the two.
Or train wreck. Yeah. Oh, wait. By the way, we haven't answered that question fully because later on that evening, off the clock, we were able to go to the entertainment district in Shanghai. And the DJ wanted us to get up on stage and perform "I Was Made for Loving You." So we played that. Remember that kind of disco-like song? It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Good.
Shouldn't have shared that, right, Brett? So last question before we hand it back, or before we close, is actually we've got a couple of questions, which is great. Jeff Cruz, affectionately known as Cruz, and some consider, as I do, the father of the Day Show, as speed to market is key for new and innovative things. So how do you balance the need for speed with ensuring that you make sure the world is ready and that you have a well-done, highly crafted product or service?
So one of the things if we're not quite ready for something, we'll call it a pilot. And we like to do a lot of pilots. So let's do something small scale. Let's get it out in a particular market, and let's just start testing right away. So one of the things we're testing right now with Spin is delivering goods. So how do you get your food delivered or a small parcel delivered, maybe on an e-bike or on a scooter? So we're not ready to go prime time in a big way on that, but we do a pilot in a particular market. And we found that we can just get forgiveness, if you will, within the organization if we keep something limited to a pilot, have the parameters really outlined very clearly, and then also identify what success looks like. So at the end of this pilot, if it met the different criteria and those different things that we said that we were going to prove out, we say, hey, this is what we were trying to accomplish. Here's what we piloted. We met those criteria, or we're making an adjustment here or there, and then we go full steam ahead. And so that's worked really well for us in different pieces of our business. Ask to do a pilot, identify what you're going to accomplish, and then pedal to the metal.
Excellent. A follow-up question to that is you mentioned vision of success, to have a very clear vision of success. What, in your opinion, is the absolute vision of success with Spin? Is it a growth initiative? Is it a number of markets that it's in? Is it a profitability deal? What's kind of top of mind for you on that?
It's just giving people choice. I think with everything that we're doing in mobility, it's giving people choice in however they want to move, whether it's on mass transit, whether it's on scooters, whether it's an autonomous vehicle. Do we have something in our portfolio that's going to help people move? Spin isn't going to be the most profitable business that we've got within Ford, but it does touch millions of people. So again, we're going to be doing tens of millions of rides potentially with Spin. So that's touching a lot of people, and it's giving them an excellent solution on how they might commute to work, how they might just use it for leisure. So I think, again, if you have solutions in all of our businesses that help people move in whatever way they want to move on a day-to-day basis, that's what success looks like for us.
Another one from Shreyas Gavitt. Hopefully I haven't butchered the name. He's an MBA student from Oakland University. He was wondering, what timelines do you plan for when you say in the near future versus the long term? So give us an idea of what your timing is, of you know, what the I guess time horizon is for your initiatives and kind of where you play.
Okay, good question. So in the Ford business, we do a 5-year business plan. So we'd have all the details for how many Mustangs we're going to sell, how many F-Series we're going to sell, what markets, what the market equation looks like, revenue points, all of that. We do that for 5 years for all of our different business units on the traditional business. Within mobility, we said that's just too long of a horizon. There's no way we know what's going to be happening 5 years down the road. So we've shortened that horizon that we develop a business plan for really just 2 years on the mobility businesses. But then we do have a horizon longer than that, which we like to call in the near. So within the next 5 years, what are the different things you think things might be headed? And we've got to make investments in certain things for that particular future, especially in autonomous vehicles, where again, you're placing a bet on what the form factor, what the shape of the vehicle is, what the interior is going to be like, what the technology is going to be like. You have to go much further out than 2 years. So 2 years for business planning purposes, 5 years on the horizon for major investments, but that's really the farthest we go. Beyond that, it's a lot of what if scenarios. Here's how cities might look in 10 years, and prepare and align on big level technologies with a lot of other industry partners and try and get a consensus on what the future might look like. So we're not spending money in different ways on things like city infrastructure or cellular communications, different things like that, but not placing big bets past 5 years.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, that is about exhaust our time, but I'd be negligent if I didn't say there's been several comments coming in that are very positive, very smart, and very innovative and visionary is one of the quotes that I've received. And Brett, I think everybody on the line agrees. You're playing in a very, very, very exciting space, but more importantly, the way that you're playing it is, I think, really aspirational to so many people on the call from a leadership and growth perspective. So I wanted to thank you very much for being on. Ladies and gentlemen, from your homes, give Brett a nice round of applause, and we'll pretend to hear it. And yes.
Thank you.
And now, Brett, thank you very much too for taking the courageous step of being our leadoff hitter as well on the day show curriculum. I'm going to hand it back to Andrew Robinson, our president, to make closing comments. And I just can't thank you enough, Brett, for the time that you've committed to this. And again, a lot of participation here. You got us kicked off perfectly.
Thank you, and thanks to the team for joining us today. I have a lot of respect for the advertising and marketing community and spent a lot of time with that community over the years, and I really appreciate you joining me today. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Brett. You're not off the hook yet. I think when we get back to you know, some form of normalcy and we can all gather as a group, I think there's a KISS reunion tour being scheduled by Adcraft right now. So we will come back knocking on your door probably sometime 2021.
Look forward to that.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank everyone. You know, this was our first attempt at doing a virtual event in the 114 years that Adcraft has existed. Really proud of how our ad community has stepped up and supported this event. And it gives me personally a lot of hope that, that Adcraft can play a very important role in the ad community as we are working from home. So I wanted to thank you, Lou, great job as always. Brett, thank you so much. And most importantly, to the 150 plus participants that signed up for this event today. It lets us know that events like this are very important, and we'll keep putting these on for you. Please do your best to like us on Facebook, Instagram, follow us. There are more to come. And now more than ever, we need the support of our ad community to come out, join up with us, help us with these events, bring your ideas, because we're going to be here for another 115 years. And now more than ever, it's important to be an Adcraft member. So thank you so much. And we hope to see you next Tuesday for our second installment of the 2020 Day Show. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your week. Take care, guys.
Thanks again, Brett.
Thank you.